him on the back and say, "Hey, man up." He's like, looks at his son and he says, "Hey, son, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery, and I promise you, something great will come out of it." And I'm telling you, sometimes we think we have to be courageous our whole life. But really, it's moments that launch us into breakthrough. It is 20 seconds of insane courage. It's that one moment standing at the car door saying, "No, I'm not going to go to that party." And I get in the party and everyone's texting, "Where are you?" You know, you get in the car and you go away, and then you get confirmation, I did the right thing. And here's the deal. If you know you need courage, don't do it alone. If I'm going to go cliff jumping into water, and how many people do you know who go and do that on their own? I'm going by myself tomorrow to go cliff jumping. No, usually we don't do it on our own. Usually we're inviting our friends because we know we might need a little encouragement. Okay, we're going to count to 3, and like you count to 3, and they're like, no, just do it again, one more time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And this is my wife on a houseboat this summer. She's like, "I really want to jump off the top of the houseboat." I'm like, "Awesome, let's get up there and do it." No, don't get near me. Don't get near me. Because she's had people who've given a little too much encouragement, in life. Her dad, bad deal. But she's standing there, and it takes her literally 25 minutes to work up that thing inside of her where she's able to do it. And she's got all of the stories and what can go wrong. And I'm a photographer. What if I land wrong and I break my arm? Like, baby, it's water. She's like, "Yeah, but what if I twist a leg and I can't walk? What if I'm like, "Baby, shh. Stop listening to the lies, the false narrative, the irrational fears that try and tell you why you can't. You can do this, baby. I believe in you. I'll give you space. You do it on your time. I'm right here with you. If you fall and hurt yourself, don't worry. You're not going to drown. I'm right here. I'll jump off and grab you. You're all good." But there's another reason why we invite people into those moments where we think we're going to do something like that. We might call it courage. Some people might call it stupidity. But why do we do it? Because we want a memorial. We want to remember those moments, and we remember it by having other people with us. And nowadays, I need someone to video this. I need a memorial. In the Old Testament, they used to take stones and make a memorial for those moments. And this is what we do in war. And like there was a battle here, and there's a heroic moment, and there's a monument we put there to remember those things. So hopefully it will encourage another generation to step out in the same way, to fight another fight, so that we stop being like, "Well, we forgot what our fathers did for us." This is the trap that Israel got into so many times, is they forgot what the generation before paid a price for. And we can't afford to do this. We're school of ministry students here and believers, and it is our responsibility, it is our privilege to carry on and grow what our fathers and mothers have already paid a price for, and value that in such a way that we get to build upon it. We don't have to revisit it. And there's too many things in the kingdom that we're having to relearn right now because we didn't value the generation that went before us. This is a side note. Have you ever wondered why there's so much that Alzheimer's, that dementia, and some of those things are continuing to increase in the population of the older generation. I have a theory behind it, and it's this. When we start isolating from the generations who paid a price and we stop valuing their story, then it invites the inability to remember, and it also can distort things. Why? Because they're alone. They're isolated. And what I think many times we're asking for fathers and mothers all the time. Will you be my spiritual father? Will you be my spiritual mother? And like, why don't you go and get a spiritual grandmother? Why don't you go get a spiritual grandfather? They've got the time that maybe a dad and mom don't have at this point. And you know what? Those guys are heroes in the faith. If you pay attention to them, like, you're going to learn things no one else knows in this generation. If you begin to value them, something's going to happen that here's what's crazy. If you do that, it will change everything, not just for them, but for you as well. And you're going to have so much brilliance that people are like, wow, where did you get that? And I'm like, well, I've got a spiritual grandfather. You know. And you know what spiritual grandfathers and grandmothers can do that dads and mom can't? They can slap you upside the head. And you say thank you. You're like, hey, thanks for that. I don't know why you did that, but I'm pretty sure I deserved it. And like, I'm okay with that. Can I meet you again tomorrow? And it's like, it is this weird things that they get away with that you won't let your parents get away with. There is a respect and a value system. And it's really important that we begin to bridge the generations, value the generations. This is all really important stuff. Is this okay? Are you getting a few things? All right. Okay. Let's talk about this new epoch, this new historical season that God's taking us into. I can't remember exactly when it was. It's probably over a year ago now. I had a dream, and God showed up in the dream, and he comes to me, and he says, Ben, I want to train you about glory. I want to train you about what my glory is. And he began to do some things in the dream and began to unpack glory to me and show things about glory that I had never understood before, that I had never seen before. And it was really incredible. And there's something going on in my spirit in this dream, in this encounter with God, where he's sharing and he's training me about glory. And at the very end of the dream, he stops and he looks at me and he says something that he's never said to me before in my life. He says, Ben, I want you to preach. I want you to begin to preach on glory. And I've had words from the Lord to preach on. You know, I've known it's the word of the Lord for a moment, but I've never had God face to face tell me, Ben, I want you to preach on glory. And he said this, and then I woke up. And guess what? I couldn't remember anything that I totally understood in here. None of it computed in here. Have you ever had those moments where you were like in the dream and you're like, yes, God, I get it. I understand it. God is unpacking like the mysteries of the universe, and your brain starts working at its full capacity. And it's awesome. Then you wake up and it goes back to 10% and you're like, no! That was my moment. And I'm like frustrated, and I'm like, oh, okay. God, you just did something in the spirit that my mind has not caught up with. And my earthly wisdom has not yet comprehended. So now what do? What's our responsibility in those? It's to go to the Word. It's to dig into God and pursue Him, because it is an invitation. And sometimes dreams are the whisper that says, hey, hey, let's talk. And that irritation of mystery, that irritation or the offense of the mystery of not knowing is an invitation to deeper relationship. It's that hidden place. Remember the story about the prophet who he goes in a cave, and you know it's all this stuff starts happening. You know, there's an earthquake, there's wind, there's fire, there's lightning, thunder, and all this stuff. And it says, and God wasn't in those things. And in a time of signs and wonders and miracles, we can get so enamored with the stuff that we forget about the voice. And it's still about the voice. It's still about that still small voice. It's still about going into that secret place. It's still about pursuit. And that irritation is drawing, is wooing us. He's wooing us. He's saying, hey, I want to spend more time. That mystery causes what? It provokes questions. And he loves conversation with his kids. Sometimes he gives you dreams, not because the purpose is for you to find a meaning. The purpose is for a conversation. It has nothing to do with the meaning. It has everything to do with talking with Dad. What's incredible is I've been able to develop this with my own children, and we started at a young age and encouraged dreams and visions, and we would pray every night, God, thank you that you give us dreams and visions. Will you give us adventures with you tonight? Give us dreams of creativity, innovation, and invention. God, give us dreams that are fun and that teach us new things. God, would you give us dreams, and would you give our neighbors dreams as well? Why do we do that? Because greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, and I'm an atmospheric prophet, so what does that mean? I shift atmospheres, and I train my kids that we shift atmospheres, not the neighborhood's going to affect me. Well, what if they're looking at pornography in the neighbor's house? Well, I'm reading the Bible, so it's going to affect them. They're not going to affect me. But when we start shrinking back and like, I'm worried about what someone else is doing, then we stop doing our mandate, which is to say, God, what you're giving me and what I'm asking for me, I'll release it on them as well. And I'm influencing. We're not those who shrink back. We're the people of courage. And so we begin to pray these prayers. And then we didn't just leave it there. They'd wake up in the morning. We say, hey, did you have a dream last night? Yeah, I had a dream. It was awesome. It was incredible. And we talk about the dreams, and we do this more and more and more and more. Now, guess what? We have such a connection around dreams. My girls will run out of their room when they have a God dream. They'll run out of the room. A couple of weeks ago, run out of their room, still in their underwear. And, Dad, I had a God dream. I've got to go get dressed. I'll be right back. They run out, get dressed, and they come back, and they're like, okay, here's the dream. And this is this, and this is this. They're already interpreting. Why? Because we've done this our whole life. They never sat through a class with me. They've done life with me. My whole family does this now. And now what's great is the same thing that God does with dreams. The whole point of dreams is relationship. And guess what? Because I've created a value for dreams in my family, I no longer have to pursue my children. They pursue me because we've created a value system for dreams. It is amazing how the thing that God gave me for connection with him is the very thing that gives me connection with my children. And it's so beautiful the way we get to do this kingdom thing. The way we get to step into this. And I love the language of dreams, and I love how God shows up. But there is times where there's this pursuit where we have to go into more of God. We have to go after this thing. And I began to read the Bible, and I began to look at different stories and go after what is this thing of glory. And God, what are you trying to teach me? What do I know in here that I don't know here yet? God, how do I match that up? And I began to study and look at scriptures like Exodus 34. If you got your Bible, you can turn there really quick. Exodus 34. In Exodus 34, it's incredible. Moses is having these moments where he goes up on the mountain of God and he sees God face to face. I mean, he's having encounters with God. And it's so incredible that his face begins to shine. or be transformed because he's been in the presence. Hey, I want it to be said of all of us that, hey, people can tell you've been in the presence. That your countenance shows that. But this is what's crazy. The Israelites were so afraid of it, they would say, hey, Moses, when you come off the mountain, put a veil on your face, because that amount of glory is convicting to us. We don't like that. We don't want to see that. But because you know what? The Israelites were invited to the same place Moses was invited. They were invited to have a relationship with God, but they were so afraid of it, they said, no, Moses, you go be the spokesperson. You go encounter God, and he would encounter God, and even the countenance of his face was convicting to them. Isn't it interesting? Nowadays, it's mostly the church that wants to veil our face when you've been in the glory. The world's okay with the glory. They're okay seeing that kind of stuff. They're looking for the supernatural. Why are they looking at witchcraft and drugs and all kinds of doorways and the occult and these movies that are crazy, all that kind of stuff? Why are they so hungry for it? Because we are all wired for the supernatural. And if they don't find it in church, they're going to find it somewhere else. Why are you coming to a supernatural school of ministry? Because you know you were born for this. You were made for the glory. You were made not just to see and behold the glory, but to actually become a representation of that. Christ in you, the hope of glory. See, it's supposed to transform our lives. It's supposed to do something. And it will be convicting. It will be convicting to people. It will provoke them either towards God or run away. But either way, it's going to confront their lives. Exodus 33, verse 11. I love this. Exodus 33. Verse 11, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks with a friend. Okay, that's incredible. How many of you want to speak to God face to face? Like a friend. This is the old covenant. We live in the new covenant, so we have access. We're just not always walking in that yet, but that's a promise. That's for us. He walks with God face to face, and this is pretty incredible, but what's crazy is now verse 12, he goes into this whole conversation with God, and he says this, Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but have not let me know whom you will send with me. And you have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If I have found favor in your eyes, teach me your ways so that I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Wait a second. This is the guy who sees God face to face all the time. And listen to his conversation. Now, God, show me your ways. God, I see you face to face all the time, but I want to know you in the depths of who you are. I don't want to just know you on face value. I want to see in the apple of your eye. I want to see down in the depths of who you are. I am hungry for more of you. Verse 14, the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know you are pleased with me and with your people unless you are with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all other people on the face of the earth? What is the thing that distinguishes us? Your presence. It's the presence of the Lord that makes us different. And it's so valuable. It's so important. Verse 17. And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you have asked because I am pleased with you. And I know you by name. Then Moses said, now show me your glory. These are crazy statements. I'm like, wait a second. I thought you were seeing God face to face. And you're asking to see his presence, to see more of the depth of inside of him. You're asking, now show me your glory. This is amazing. This is incredible. And in verse 19, and the Lord said, I will cause my goodness to pass in front of you. Did you know his goodness is a portion of his glory? Every time God reveals goodness in your life, he is revealing portions of his glory. Sometimes we miss that. I will cause my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I'll have compassion on whom I have compassion. But he said, you can't see my face, for no one may see me and live. Wait a second. Didn't we just read in verse 11, and Moses talked to God face to face like a friend. And then God says, hey, you can't handle my face. You can't handle the truth. If you see my face, you're going to die. And I'm like, I'm confused. Until you recognize that there are levels of God's glory, that there are portions of his glory that is revealed to us, his manifold presence. There's so much to it that we're seeing facets of it. And what God's saying here is, hey, if you saw the fullness of my face, you couldn't handle it. So God does something. He says, hey, Moses, I'm going to grab you. I'm going to put you on this rock. And then I'm going to shove you in the crack in the rock. And then I'm going to walk by you, and you get to see my backside because you can't handle seeing my face. And let me just tell you this. Moses knew something that sometimes we don't fully comprehend. He knows there's more to God than what he's seen. And when you have an infinite God, it doesn't matter how many encounters you've had. It's not enough. It's not the fullness. It's not the totality of who he is. It doesn't matter if you have the glory cloud showing up at your church. I mean, we had the glory cloud. Why do we call it the glory cloud? I don't know. It was something that was crazy that we didn't understand, and it showed up right about here on the stage over here, and there was no vent. There's no nothing there. A black floor, and like this glittery firefly dust shoots up in a tornado from the ground. I was in the very first service it showed up, helping lead that service, and it showed up in both me and a guy named Dan Fairley, one of our teaching pastors of the church. We both look at each other like, you see that? Yeah, I see that. Is that real? What is that? And we're like, okay, we've got to be like, don't make this like uber weird. We got new projectors. Was there glitter on the projectors? You know, we got these new screens, and what is there something like iridescent on the screens? And we're going through the checklist of this. Don't be stupid. And I'm like, this is actually real, and it's not coming from that. It's not coming from that. And the response of the people, what was crazy? It didn't happen in preaching. Didn't happen from a great worship closeout or great worship set. We had a fire tunnel that night. It didn't even happen when the fire tunnel was going. We had wrapped up everything and just about to leave, and whoosh, here it is over here. And that whatever the glittery firefly stuff, I don't know what it was, but it began to fill the room. I called my wife. I'm like, baby, get down here. She's like, I'm in my pajamas. I'm like, I don't care. Something's happening. This is incredible. I don't know what it is. And it was alive. It was like, you know how air conditioning pushes stuff in the one direction, you know, dust in the air, and you see it moving in one direction. This didn't do this. It had a mind of its own. It was like, fireflies who would just flit off in different directions. And then it'd float and all over the room, and it filled the room, and it happened many times. And like, you know what? I experienced that, but it's not good enough. It's amazing. I celebrate those moments. I share the testimony of it, but it doesn't fulfill me today. See, this is that whole thing about manna. Manna works for one day. But there is the manna, this is crazy, this is probably stupid, manifold wisdom of God. There's way more than just a moment. You can't just taste and see that the Lord is good once. Like when you taste good things, like carbs, you want more. I'm just like, carbs are my friend. It's just right now, we're taking a break from one another. But when we come back, absence makes the heart grow fonder. The manifold wisdom of God, the manifold glory of God. See, it's not good enough to have one face-to-face. He's got so much more to show us. The angels stand in heaven singing, glory, holy, 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 holy. Oh my goodness, holy. Oh, did you see holy, holy? Why are they crying out holy all the time? Because they're seeing something new every moment. Because God just moved. Oh, holy cow, that is awesome. Hey, Michael, holy? It's like all the time. And we've got to renew the wonder in our life. We've got to have eyes to see what God is doing, who He is, the brilliance, the creativity, the innovation. All of those things stem from being in the glory. When you're in His presence, something starts happening. Something starts showing up. See, issues start changing when you're with God face to face. I shared it last night, but that old song, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. Look full in His glorious face. And the things of earth, the issues, my problems, my bank account, whatever it is that you're facing, the things of earth grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. We need another encounter with God. We need another face-to-face. If you got a problem, get face-to-face with God, because His glory all of a sudden changes your perspective on problems. We talked about that yesterday. God is ushering us into a season where it's going to be perpetual encounters with God, where it's going to be a sign and a wonder, where people are going to be running all over the place.